I'm not brown and Muslim. I also may or may not have the cop. And also am responsible for many of your friends. But guess what? I'm not a Mohammedan. And I don't like 9/11, whereas Zohran clearly loves it. After all, he is brown and Muslim. He is Mohammedan. All right. New York City mayor's race narrows as election day approaches, and we're going to be talking about that. This is a black-pilling moment.
Election day, now just 1 week away. Early voting in the New York City mayor's race has seen a much stronger turnout than 4 years ago.
It comes as Andrew Cuomo is now gaining ground on Zohran Mamdani in the polls. Christina Fan is live at an early voting site in Jackson Heights, Queens. Christina.
Mary and Chris, good morning.
It's crazy the leftists, even outside the imperial core, still have infighting and splitting. How is that always so difficult? What are the major disagreements that these groups have that split them? Or are they actually being sabotaged by liberals? No. As much as I would like to say it's the liberals or it's the reactionaries that infiltrate these movements, and there are some instances where they do that, this has been an endless problem on the left. If you ever look to the history of successful socialist revolutions and unsuccessful revolutionary movements, reformist, revisionist movements, it just always is. It always has existed. There is a reason why every single important Marxist, socialist thinker, even during a successful revolution, has spent endless amounts of time constantly criticizing other delineations and other tendencies amongst the left. There has never been a moment where successful law, yes, I would say the USSR was the aftermath of a successful revolution. If you can design a state, then your revolution was successful. You might not agree with like how the state is managed after that. Okay. I think a lot of the infighting also stems from how overwhelming the forces of capital are. It makes it virtually impossible to design any sort of discipline in any sort of movement, especially because a lot of people have very different versions of what it means to be authoritarian and what it means to be a democratically organized movement. And those differences become fairly consequential in the grand scheme of things. And no one turns around and goes, okay, we've actually achieved this success. We've actually destroyed Tsarist Russia. Now it's time for us to unify. It never works that way. It happens at every point. The American left, which is virtually non-existent, okay, is a great example of this. Even when we got no class consciousness as a country, even when we have no real robust left movement in the country, people are still constantly eating each other alive, talking about how different it is, okay? Constantly talking about how it's bullshit.
More than 223,000 people have cast their ballots during the first 3 days of early voting, and there appears to be a surge of older voters. They are outnumbering younger New Yorkers who helped propel Zohran Mamdani to his dominant win over Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary.
Zohran Mamdani says he appeared on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart Monday night, confident his legion of 90,000 volunteers will bring him to victory over the finish line, despite a new poll showing Andrew Cuomo surging.
Making buses faster, free delivering universal child care. These are not just slogans.
Right.
These are commitments.
Chatter's wrong. There are liberation groups who aren't even infighting and formed a united front. Not exactly socialist Marxists. PFLP and DFLP are the only ones who had a split along ideological lines. Hamas and PIJ were created on their own terms, not socialists, but still liberationists. Yes. Yes. I know. This is true. And ultimately, they still had a singular focus in fighting back against the Israeli occupation. So they could unite in their militancy, in their efforts of militancy, because of how oppressive Israel has been. So historically, and even in contemporary society, the only time where a dominated population ever actually gets together and casts aside whatever differences in opinion that they have is when they're singularly focused on an emancipatory struggle, when they're singularly focused on overcoming a fascist movement or overcoming an ethno-nationalist project such as Israel, or overcoming the utter domination of Tsarist Russia. Those are the only instances where people actually successfully get together and fight back. So much so that I can point to you the endless civil war that existed between Maoists and the nationalists in China. They also dropped their infighting to do a little collab special in an effort to fight against the Japanese side that was taking place. They literally did that. They were like, all right, we got to do a little bit of a collab here. Okay? W collab. Is Zohran losing? What's happening? He's not, but so far the early numbers that have come out do not look too good. Okay? And we're going to talk about that. It's not because this is CBS. There is certainly a little bit of validity, so much so that even the Zohran campaign itself has actually used this as an opportunity to spark the light under the asses of a lot of people. Okay, they also put out a press notification saying Cuomo's cut our lead in half from 20 to 10. And a lot of older people are voting in the early voting. The early voting numbers look crazy, okay? They're like 5xing previous early voting numbers. And unfortunately for Zohran, the early voting numbers off of demographics are 55 plus year olds that favor Cuomo over Zohran. Now, they favor Cuomo over Zohran by a small margin, okay? They favor Cuomo over Zohran in the 55 plus demographic over like oftentimes around like 4 points. Having said that, it's still a cause for concern. The socialist labeling is one of the biggest uphill battles that will always work against the progressive. I don't think it's the socialist label. I think it's more so just straightforward racism. I think the mailers and the flyers and presenting Zohran as like this scary threat to New York that's going to do 9/11 10 times over if he becomes mayor is working with the boomers, with the white boomers, and not even just the white boomers, with the black boomers and brown boomers as well. Mike from PA told me that younger people vote late into early voting, so you see a bias towards higher age early in early voting. Sure. But you have to understand, like, a lot of us look to that stuff and instantly think this is gross, right? This is gross. This is racist. This is bullshit. But what we consider to be bullshit, many older people do not. Many older people say, "Oh my God, this is terrifying." Okay, there are numerous factors in here that must be considered. I think people's tendency to be duped by the algorithm plays a role in this as well. After all, I just spent the minutes covering people who are our age coming in here to be like, I just saw that you're quitting on TikTok. Why the fuck is that a thing? Right? It kind of feels like people do have a tendency to be duped. For all the people that have come in here to check on their own, I'm sure there are tens of thousands of people who just made up their minds that I had actually quit. You know? I do think what's funny about this is that a lot of Zohran's policies unironically help the old. Like when you look at rent stabilized housing, like it's people that were lucky enough to get into rent stabilized housing and stayed there for many, many years. So it's like working old folk. And even then, who knows if they receive that message. Meanwhile, you know who is anti-old? Andrew fucking Cuomo. He slaughtered the old of New York during COVID.
And when we deliver them here in New York City, it will be also the delivery of a politics that can actually aspire for more than what you're living through.
The new Suffolk University poll has Mamdani at 44, Cuomo 34, Curtis Sliwa 11. Cuomo has been closing the gap. Mamdani had a 20-point lead in the poll back in September.
I feel very good because New Yorkers, at the end of the day, they want a mayor who can do the job.
But can Cuomo make up 10 points in 8 days with people already voting?
Polls can change in a second, and I expect there'll be a couple, maybe one or two more that might show it's back to 20 or might show it's down to 5. So it's a pretty volatile race. But certainly this is as close as he's gotten.
Early voters have been coming out in record numbers. At the end of day 3, more than 223,000 have already cast a ballot, with Brooklyn and Manhattan leading the way.
We have unprecedented early turnout. Some of that obviously is because I'm running as the only Republican. So let the people determine who becomes the next mayor.
And according to the latest poll, about 7% of those surveyed say they remain undecided. Reporting live from Jackson Heights, Queens, Christina Fan, CBS News, New York.
Christina, thank you.
It is mind-boggling to me that for boomers, I mean, if the fear-mongering coming from CBS News remains, okay, then boomers don't want any policy. They just don't want a brown guy. Okay? They just straight up are like, oh, what are the policies that this guy's offering? Fast and free buses, rent freeze for rent-stabilized units in New York, universal child care, a tax on the super wealthy potentially. Okay, great. What's the other side offering? I'm not brown and Muslim. I also may or may not have raped a cop. And also am responsible for killing many of your friends. But guess what? I'm not a Mohammedan. And I don't like 9/11, whereas Zohran clearly loves it. After all, he is brown and Muslim. He is Mohammedan. My opponent, ladies and gentlemen, of the elderly, is very much a Muslim man who would like to do the Islamic Caliphate. And every boomer's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is the best. This is, well, you sold me. You fucking sold me. It's just crazy because, like, I don't know. It's hard not to feel discouraged. Mamdani voters overwhelmingly say they're voting for him, but a huge chunk of Cuomo voters say they're mainly voting against Mamdani. 40% of Cuomo voters are voting for Cuomo, and 40% are voting against Mamdani. Whereas for Mamdani, 80% of voters are voting for Mamdani and only 15% are voting against Cuomo. And no, it's not because they Googled Hasan Piker 9/11 chatters. I am utterly fucking irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, okay? This is what I was trying to explain to you. Hasan Piker 9/11 is not a banger. What's a banger is constantly reminding people that Zohran is a Muslim person and consistently hitting him on the lines of he's Muslim. Remember how Muslim he is. Remember, Muslims did 9/11. Have you not seen the fucking attack ads, especially on Twitter? Everywhere you look, they just go, he's eating with his hands. He's eating rice with his hands. He's Muslim. He's scary Muslim terrorist. If Zohran was a white guy, if Zohran was a white dude, okay, and his name was Jedediah, okay, do you think any of that shit would work against him? No. Look at fucking Grant Plattner. Grant Plattner had a goddamn totem cough on his chest. The fuck are we talking about? White people literally see a dude who went on 3 tours, who then signed up to be like an embassy security guy for Blackwater, who had a totem cough on his chest and go, oh, that's a corked up white boy. I'm on board. Fuck it. Let's go. Zohran doesn't have any of that shit and yet gets yelled at about his anti-Semitism non-fucking stop. Hassan Piker 9/11. Yeah, the last time that popped off was July. It was August of 2019 when I said what I said, ironically enough, and I got a lot of media coverage over it. Do you think Zohran would get benefit from getting a Nazi tattoo? No, because Zohran isn't fucking white. That's my point. Zohran isn't white. Graham Plattner is literally doing town halls in towns in Maine that have like 2,000 people population total with like 700 people. So like he's literally currently doing town halls where half the fucking population of the town are at the town hall. Ain't nobody gives a fuck. Whiteness is a superpower. Being white is so OP. Being a white man, oh my God, is the most overpowered shit. I'm making a comparison between Zohran Mamdani, who has a unblemished, unvarnished track record and has great policies, and yet people seemingly still can't overcome the fact that he's fucking brown. Okay? That's it. That's fucking it. I've seen a bunch of people declare this to be a devastating blow for Mamdani, but October, yeah, I mean, I talked about this as well. But October polls show Cuomo only has a 4-point average lead among older voters. In Suffolk County, 55 to 64, Cuomo plus 3, 65 plus, Cuomo plus 4. For 65 plus, Cuomo's lead against Mamdani for 65 plus year old voters is a 0.1 on the AARP poll. For Fox News, 65 plus goes to Cuomo by plus 10. Okay, that's the most like devastating poll. And no, just because it's Fox News doesn't mean that they're not a reputable pollster. They are a reputable pollster. They are a reputable pollster. Don't get fucking sidetracked here by Fox News. Quinnipiac says for 65 plus, Cuomo has a plus 4 lead. Okay, this to me is actually devastating for Cuomo. Cuomo should be cleaning up the New York olds, right? Name recognition, a tendency to overlook all of the past shit that Andrew Cuomo has done. Andrew Cuomo is exactly the type of person that like New York olds would vote for. So the very fact that he's only got a fucking plus 4 lead on the 65 plus line is crazy. Is so crazy that it makes me feel like he already killed all of his fucking voters. And that's the reason why he's only got a plus 4 lead on 65 plus. Because on the other side, when you go back beyond 55, when you go to like 35 to 18 category, it's not even a question. But of course, there is a lot more mobilization for the olds. Old people love voting. Young people don't love voting. Young people are hard to get out to vote. Does this mean that voters will like the young voters will actually turn out in numbers necessary to overcome the olds? We shall see. My actual issue with this is Mamdani needs a fucking mandate because without it, the sharks will smell the blood in the water. No, I mean, it's fine. It is mandate or not. Mamdani victory here is fantastic. It's phenomenal. Okay. Mike from PA said the older voters tended to vote in the first days of the early voting, while younger early voters tend to vote in the later part of the early voting periods. I trust Michael from Pennsylvania, especially when it comes to elections. He has a pretty good understanding of this stuff. I don't think it's copium for people who think like, you know, he's coping or whatever, or it's no longer Cuomo over. It's Zohran over. People who are saying we're cooked off the first sign of bad news at PTSD. It's understandable why people have PTSD in this situation. Okay, if you are a part of the left, you probably have developed. You probably developed an understanding that in most circumstances, every single force of capital will be against you, as we have seen in this fucking election. Okay? And people are unfortunately malleable. Okay? People are unfortunately malleable. They are endlessly persuadable, especially when it comes to racialized sentiment and things of that nature. They very clearly respond to it. This was a factor in Kamala Harris's election chances as well, certainly. Not the most consequential factor, but the factor that made all of her negative qualities come across as irredeemable. Okay? And the same goes for Zohran. Despite having an unvarnished track record and has maintained tremendous messaging discipline over the key policies that he wants to implement, there are still plenty of people who can't get over the notion that, you know, you're going to have a Muslim mayor. Oh my God, that's terrifying. And I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying that because of the Islamophobic. The reason why I'm saying that is because that's the only fucking that is the only thing that Cuomo has been attacking him on. Okay, that's the only thing. That's it. They've attacked him on nothing other than the fact that he is Muslim in the last 2 weeks. This is what's happening with boomers in New York City. Yeah, this is the classic. But here,
9/11 was bad.
I agree with that. What are your plans for cleaning up our environment?
9/11.
What about our traffic problem?
9/11.
we like to think that we're so brilliant, we're so smart, and we're not susceptible to propaganda. But honestly, people are by and large very fucking stupid. And I think we forget that this is not some concerted anti-Muslim hatred. It's totally banal. They saw a Fox News segment, don't care about following the race or politics, and go spend 5 minutes to vote for some dude who has a familiar name. And that's like 95% of people. Yes. For a lot of people, that's what it takes. No one is immune to propaganda. No one. What is this? After getting busted in a lie, his aunt wasn't even in New York City during 9/11 and who doesn't wear a hijab. Zohran now says it was a distant cousin, not his aunt, who was afraid to wear a hijab in 9/11 in New York City because of 9/11. Oops. My aunt is my cousin. Leftist talking points collapse. This is what I mean. Like, this is not a real story, but it doesn't fucking matter. And by that, I don't mean like Zohran is faking it. I'm saying like all of the anger towards this anecdote, okay? All of the anger and animosity directed towards this anecdote is because it's a real anecdote that many Muslims have experienced in the aftermath of 9/11, and these guys fucking hate that shit. They don't want to hear it at all, okay? So their gotcha is a dude calling a distant relative an auntie, okay? As opposed to saying like my dad's distant cousin. How do you explain that to people? How do you explain that to white people? I guess like white people don't do that. They don't like consider other familial relatives aunties, you know? Like think about how much people are overlooking Andrew Cuomo's faults and failures, and think about how much of a bigger story they are desperately trying to make this. And it hasn't stopped. Like the New York Times literally worked with a fucking white supremacist, race realist guy that is like popping on TikTok to say that Zohran had actually lied on his fucking on his college application for a university that he didn't even go to. Like that was months ago. That was the story. So they've been at it. The New York Times has been at it. They haven't fucking stopped. I need you to understand, New York Times is supposed to be either unbiased in this regard or kind of liberal adjacent. And yet, for some reason, they hammered that super fucking hard early on. It didn't work, but that didn't stop them. This is not only a anecdote that every single Muslim has had, like a similar experience, where they have someone who's like a distant or immediate relative or themselves have experienced this. Okay, this is a very common experience, but God forbid you fucking bring it up. Everyone will chop that shit up into oblivion and try to act as though you're fucking lying about it.
that a blood relative? Yes, I was speaking about my aunt. I was speaking about Zerafui, my father's cousin, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And for the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo and his inability to reckon with a crisis of his own.
Yeah, he says my father's cousin. That's who I was referencing as an aunt. And Ted Cruz, of course, didn't even listen to it. Oops, my aunt is my cousin. Leftist talking points collapse. 44,000 likes. Do you think this is organic? I don't. I don't think this is fucking organic at all. I'm sorry. I have seen a metric ton more Islamophobia than ever before since the ceasefire. Okay? And it is being directed at Zohran aggressively. Yeah, see, breaking. It has been revealed that the aunt Zohran Mamdani shed fake tears over, claiming she stopped riding the subway after 9/11 because she didn't feel safe wearing her hijab. Neither wore a hijab nor lived in New York City at the time. She lived in Tanzania. 124,000 likes, 6.7 million views. It's fucking insane, brother. How is this driving discourse? How is this fucking driving discourse, man? 6.7 million views. There are 100K plus likes on any given Islamophobic tweet, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's just who the demographic of Twitter is nowadays. There's two things at play here. One, the anti-Zohran bots are out, okay? The anti-Zohran bots are out. Problem is, botting does work in terms of shaping public discourse and public attitudes. When you see something go buck wild on Twitter, even if you're a normal human being, it actually has a tendency to shape your perspective. Okay? It has a tendency to shape your perspective. You go, wow, a lot of people believe this. Maybe this is actually fucked up. Okay? And the same goes for not just the, where are you going? Kaya, where are you going? Oh God. Uh-oh. Hello. Place. Kaya, place. Abuse. Dog abuse. Dog abuse. Two things I think are important to factor here is, number one, I said this already with the City Hall Bureau Chief for New York Times, Emma G. Fitzsimmons, talking about Zohran Mamdani is pressed on La Mega Radio if he lied when he said his aunt stopped taking the subway after September 11th attacks. Mamdani said, it's not a lie. My father's cousin is my aunt. He said that was how he referred to her growing up. To which I said, this is turning into an Obama tan suit level controversy. Now, the thing is, the tan suit is stupid. In hindsight, we look back at it and we point to it as like a silly fucking a point of controversy, or the Dijon mustard controversy. Like Obama famously was yelled at for shit like that. Okay? As opposed to valid reasons to criticize him, which everyone obviously had universal consensus over, extrajudicial killings in the drone war and things of that nature. But they hit him with like the dumbest shit. But while it was happening, that was a big point of contention. It's virtually impossible to explain to people now that was a mover, man. That was a mover and shaker. Like, people actually unironically would talk about how unpresidential it was that Obama was wearing a fucking tan suit, or how elitist and out of touch and entitled he was for demanding Dijon mustard, or the fact that he wasn't a real American, the fact that he actually faked his fucking birth certificate. In your stream with him, he broadly used uncle or aunt for elderly people. This is so silly. I know. And the other thing that's going on here, obviously, is that Israel can't win Americans over anymore, so its defenders have decided to disparage Muslims instead. And it seems to be working so far. Poll-tested messaging being used by Hasanverse to make public more amenable towards Israel. 1. Fear-mongering about Muslims. 2. Jews were promised Palestine. 3. Blaming Palestinians for continuing to resist their murder and displacement. About half of all Europeans were generally misinformed about the state of Israel as a democracy offering freedom of religion, having rights for women and gays. Fear of the threat of Islamic jihadism is prevalent throughout Europe. Europeans believe that the Hamas casualty numbers are accurate and that mostly civilians were killed. They agree with the language of Israel being a genocidal apartheid country, even though it contradicts their opposition to Hamas in Iran. Top messages in Europe mostly echo what worked in the U.S., that Hamas fosters a culture of death and hate, celebrating atrocities, that the purpose of Hamas is to destroy all Jews and spread jihadism, They also questioned the alliance with the left, given the cultural anti-gay position of Iran and Hamas. 2 other key messages. The Jewish people need a homeland, and Hamas at this point should just give up. Most importantly, all countries showed significant shifts after the messaging, averaging over 20 points, especially once the situation in Gaza is resolved. The room for growth in all countries is very significant. This was from a leaked document, okay, that was commissioned by the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs to basically restructure how Israel needs to propagandize going forward. And one of their key findings was to just say Islamic barbarism and Muslims are a fucking plague on Europe, and try to tie that back to Israel is fighting the same battles that you're fighting on the home front. You have to keep this in mind when thinking about how aggressively the Islamophobia has been tuned up. Yeah, and they're doing it. Like, they're openly doing it. Eric Doherty, just in 2 major American cities, are about to elect Muslim communists as mayor. Unreal. The consequence, these cities are dooming themselves. 51,000 likes. And now with the purchase of TikTok, they can hammer on these messages over and over and over again until it fucking sticks. Meanwhile, messages like this, even though Ted Cruz misread, or Ted Cruz just simply read this and didn't even listen to the fucking video, okay, and is dunking on Zohran, gets 45,000 likes. Van's response, honestly, the fact that y'all don't get this auntie cousin thing just tells me that you guys are super elite, non-regular family having people. This is truly insanely ridiculous. Only 6,000 likes. That's it. Israel realizes that they cannot fucking defend Israel in the United States of America. Random moment from your stream where he broadly uses uncle.
How are we going to get people out? They were actually uncles from, not just from Queens. Bronx.
All the uncles got together.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no. You're a star.
Yeah. It's so fucking stupid, man. And even white boys do it too nowadays, especially with like the TikTok. Especially with like TikTok making it more, TikTok and AAVE flowing through TikTok in general. Unk is like a part of the common vernacular at this point. Like, I'm not actually Jason the Ween's real life uncle, but I call him my nephew. Okay, W nephew, W Unk. He's not literally my nephew. Okay, yeah. I cannot believe we're having any fucking time. We're expending any sort of time litigating this. But that's the point. They make a big deal out of this shit, and then they push you to be on the defensive. And every moment that you spend defending the truth is another moment that they can chop away at the limited amount of time you have presenting a positive message. This happens all the time with like silly internet drama. It literally happens nonstop on the internet. And those tactics are being utilized in the political sphere, or they were being utilized in the political sphere, and now it's being utilized in the internet drama sphere. Because like, this is how Oppo works. This is how manufactured outrage works. Okay? So why not address it one time and move on? Because the media is playing a formative role in this. The media constantly brings it up. That's it. That's it. America's most important social thinker on Auntiegate.
I would say like 80% of ethnic groups are exactly the same. And everybody pretends, like everyone's like, oh, we're always late. We eat a lot. We have guilt. And it's like, that is everyone but WASPs, I think.
This is quite literally the last third of my current hour is like, that like everyone is the same because everyone says they value family and food. And they think they invented family. And we just like to get together. And it's not just family, actually. It's relatives, like
yeah. You know, a guy I thought was my uncle wasn't even related to me. It's like, most people are like that.
Or people are like, we call her an auntie. I'm like, I'm familiar.
Yeah. I do think that is probably just how much like WASP culture is like dominant in, but it's like they are the outlier.
Can you explain what WASP means? It means white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It is the most domineering culture in America. It is the people that designed this country. It is the people that have shaped the culture of this country. This shit is just like Collargate. They're throwing whatever they can to see what sticks. It's like going forward, every Zohran post will have 20 bots posting about his aunt. Exactly. The Tish family put 1.2 mil against Mamdani. Meet the billionaire spending over six figures to stop Zohran from becoming New York's next mayor. From Michael Bloomberg to Bill Ackman. I know, we covered this already. Like, this is not irrelevant, okay? This is not irrelevant. This is a major, major issue. Billionaires see the popular mandate that a guy like Zohran has, and they want to fucking stop it no matter what. This is not only like Collargate, it's every single Republican-bred narrative. I know, that's why I didn't bring that up. I brought up the Obama tan suit controversy, okay? The Obama tan suit controversy is perfect. Now, obviously, that wasn't an election controversy, but birtherism is an election-related controversy that was unimaginably racist. And while Zohran is still up in the polls, this is just early panicking, but it means something, okay? I'm not saying it's over. I'm simply saying that the very fact that you can literally just dial up Islamophobia to such a degree and actually yield results like this in a campaign that is utterly devoid of policy prescriptions. Because Andrew Cuomo's campaign, name one policy of Andrew Cuomo's. I can give you two, and I've been paying close attention, okay? And that's the only reason why I can tell you two key policy proposals. 5,000 new cops for the NYPD and making sure that Zohran Mamdani cannot live in a fucking rent, a adjusted rent apartment unit. Like evicting Zohran Mamdani and 5,000 more cops. That's it. That's not a fucking, that's literally not a, that's not a thing. It is utterly devoid of policy. It's just simply a fuck Zohran campaign. And all of the fuck Zohran initiatives up until this very moment have been an abject failure. With the exception of Islamophobia. The reason why he was able to cut the lead in some of these polls by 10 points is because Zohran is Muslim and he just keeps hammering the Islamophobia shit over and over again. And the more the uninitiated hear about that, the more the random people who are like, oh, there's a mayoral election, let me tune in now. The more they hear about that, the more they go, ooh, maybe this guy will do 9/11. Okay? That's it. This is the time where Zohran has to lock the fuck in and just stick to the messaging. This is the most important part of his campaign in terms of messaging discipline. Coasting on previous popularity won't work at all because this is where the actual voters are coming into play. The broad majority of voters who have not been paying too close attention to what the fuck's going on. This is where, if you live in New York, you got to fucking get your parents and your grandparents to go out and vote for Zohran Mamdani. Okay? That's it. This is where you have to canvass extra hard. It's not a time to feel like Zohran is going to coast to victory. Okay? Not at all. You have to be playing as though he's down 10 points, not up 20. Okay? New York City Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani holds a commanding lead over former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent, according to a poll released 1 week before Election Day. The 5-day Manhattan Institute survey, which closed Sunday, shows Mamdani leading with 43% of likely voter support, followed by Cuomo's 28% and Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa's 19%. Around 8% were undecided. This is a good poll that came out for Zohran, but it doesn't matter. There are a bunch of bad polls. Like, even in the bad polls, he's still leading by 10. But the very fact that Andrew Cuomo seemingly 10 points into Zohran's commanding lead after not really presenting anything new or unique beyond talking about how Zohran Mamdani is a Mohammedan terrorist is a little worrisome. Okay? We haven't watched the Zohran Daily Show interview yet. Well, we will, obviously. Yeah, this was the bad one. Cuomo cuts Mamdani's lead by 10 points after Adams' exit. In a Suffolk University poll conducted around the same time, Mamdani's lead over Cuomo was more narrow, with 44% to Cuomo's 34%. Sliwa followed with 11%. Early voting is underway in New York City, and the ballot, which still includes candidates like incumbent Mayor Eric Adams, who have suspended their campaigns, cannot be altered. But the Manhattan Institute survey still asks voters about the hypothetical head-to-head matchups. Between just Mamdani and Cuomo, the gap narrows, but Mamdani maintains his edge, 44% to 40%. In a hypothetical matchup with Sliwa, Mamdani leads 47% to 33%. Mamdani has focused his campaign on affordability, proposing programs such as free buses, which he says would be paid for by increasing tax on the wealthiest New Yorkers and raising the corporate tax rate. He also is focused on crime prevention, saying the city has relied on police to deal with the failures of our social safety net. Despite Mamdani's commanding lead in the new poll, New York City residents are less convinced by some of his practical proposals. A majority of respondents in the poll oppose making all New York City buses fare-free. Asked to select the statement closest to their view, 58% agreed that making buses free for everyone sounds nice, but it would make things worse in practice. It would turn buses into rolling shelters for homeless people and drug addicts, invite more crime and antisocial behavior, and leave even less money to fix the slow and unreliable service. Except it hasn't happened in the pilot program. That's what's so crazy about it. Like, the solution to this fear-mongering is just simply to point to the pilot program that Zohran actually pushed. It was an immense success. A third of the respondents, meanwhile, selected the following statement. Bus service should be fast and free, universally accessible. Eliminating fares will make public transit more affordable and efficient for working New Yorkers while reducing conflicts between riders and operators. Asked about the fare evasion on subways, 60% of respondents said allowing the practice to go unchecked invites more crime and freeloading, while enforcing payment helps maintain order and safety. Only 30% said fare evasion is mostly harmless and should not be policed aggressively, and that enforcement criminalizes poverty. And you have to remember, like, fast and free buses literally already exist in other cities around the United States of America. That's what's so nutty about this. The working class is so fucking right-wing, it's crazy. No, man. The working class is just heavily propagandized. In the absence of any sort of counter-messaging from the left on issues such as this one, of course, the only thing they hear is stabbings happening on buses by crazy homeless people. And when they see homeless people on the street fucking screaming and shit, they go, oh my God, crime is out of fucking control. What is fast? Buses with racing stripes and a spoiler. Exactly. Yeah, in ski towns, all public transportation is free all over America. Not a singular problem there. Yeah, because, you know, white people are going out to ski. Anyway, New Yorkers were more inclined to support raising the corporate tax rate on business at the state level in order to pay for new social programs in New York City's 53% supported it, while 39% opposed it. Okay? It's easy to make someone more racist, but not more anti-capitalist. Yes, that is by design. Just like it's literally a million times easier to make people anti-Semitic rather than making them anti-Israel from an anti-imperialist framework. Okay? That's it. Americans are super duper tuned in to racialized messages. It's so easy to get them to be on board with an anti-Israel message by just simply being anti-Semitic. It's much easier to do that.
Literally
100%.
Everyone else on earth behaves the exact same way.
Anyway, just like it's much easier to engage in Islamophobic narratives rather than try to make people pro-Israel. Or even pro-Jewish at this point, right? That false conflation is stuck in the minds of many people. Is the stream getting brigaded? Why is it in 3-month only, follower only mode? What do you think? Yes, like all the time, nonstop. Wait, what is this? Ben a minute.
If you've been online for the past
infiltrated the Groiper army, stud. By the way, Ben a minute, stud. We'll look at that later. How is he going to make the buses faster? He's just going to tell the people to put the pedal to the metal. No, fast and free buses means more buses, more bus lines. That's it. Yeah, they're going to put racing stripes on the side of the buses. Yeah. Bus lanes could be one way to do that. Dedicated bus lanes could be one way to do that, and having more buses as well. Also, when you no longer have fare to worry about at the point of entry, that also automatically makes the buses faster too. And also, obviously, the thing that we are refusing to reckon with here, which is racing stripes. Everybody knows racing stripes actually make cars faster. This was also another thing that I saw that people were like yelling about, which I think is really funny. This goes back to the classic, name one thing that Zohran has ever said that is remotely anti-Semitic. and everything that people find and everything that people point to is not anti-Semitic at all. And it's just a basic, accurate reflection of reality of Israel's relationship with like the American law enforcement, for example. Let's hear what Zohran is saying here. Okay. This is pretty bad. Really getting into Jewish conspiracy type stuff here, says Kathy Young. Soviet-born Jewish American gal, voice of reason against the madness, lover of otters, bulwark online, Reason Magazine, Newsday, etc. Let's take a look.
The importance for me of international solidarity is that it takes me out of the American political landscape and reminds me just how tame some of the things are that I'm actually calling for. And it reminds me of the necessity of grounding ourselves in the struggles as opposed to the fights around the struggles. For anyone to care about these issues, we have to make them hyperlocal. We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF. We are in a country where those connections abound, especially in New York City. You have so many opportunities to make clear.
Bars, by the way, is literally true. Hey, why the fuck is there a Tel Aviv NYPD station, bro? Why does the NYPD have a headquarters in Tel Aviv? Why is it that the IDF, post 9/11, has trained virtually every single law enforcement precinct in this fucking country, all the way down to goddamn Iowa, for counterterrorism initiatives? Why does Israel have a birthright program for cops? Jewish cops, just cops. Why? And when you actually bring that up, people go, wow, anti-Semitic much? It's like, brother, I didn't design this complex web, okay? Neither did you. I'm simply reflecting on the reality, and you're mad that I'm doing it. Yeah, there is a word for this kind of twisted fear-mongering and conspiratorial thinking. Anti-Semitism is Jonathan Greenblatt. ADL considered scrapping its U.S. police training trips to Israel, decided not to after defending the program at the height of 2020 anti-brutality protests. The anti-racism organization is now admitting that an internal memo questioned their ethicality. The only bad thing about this clip is that he will answer now if pressed about it. Yeah, but that's not a bad thing. Because remember, Islamophobia works against Zohran Mamdani. But accusations of anti-Semitism, especially when he's simply talking about Israel, and any sort of reflection on anti-Israel sentiment is good for Zohran Mamdani. So if they actually hammer this point on, not to give any fucking tips and tricks to the Zohran haters that are probably crawling all over this goddamn stream on a daily fucking basis, but anytime they bring up shit like that, he actually looks better because people go, wait, that is weird. You have, like, this is why I tell you all the time, like, some of the things that have been perceived as a normal part of American politics are actually insane to the average normie. When the average normie finds out that the NYPD actually works closely with the Israeli occupational forces, they go, what the fuck? That's crazy. When the average normie finds out about the fact that in 38 states, you have to literally sign a promise note that you will never protest against the state of Israel to get a job, and you can be fired from your job for ever saying anything mean about a foreign state, they go, what the fuck? Hello? You can say fuck America all day, every day in these states, but you can't say fuck Israel and retain your job. Isn't that crazy? It's true. It's literally fucking true. Yeah, hard to know who he hates more, the cops or the Jews. Pray for New York City. None of these assholes, why American police departments get counter-terrorism training from the IDF. How hasn't the antibodies legislation been overturned by the courts yet? You mean anti-BDS? Yeah, here it is, bro. Here it is, brother. Look. With whom are many U.S. police departments training? With a chronic human rights violator, Israel. This is from August 25th, 2016. Amnesty International. When the U.S. Department of Justice published a report August 10th, 2016, that documented widespread constitutional violations, discriminatory enforcement, and culture of retaliation within the Baltimore Police Department, there was a highly there was a rightly general reaction of outrage. But what hasn't received as much attention is where Baltimore received training on crowd control, use of force and surveillance, Israel's national police, military, and intelligence services. What? Interesting. This was something that I brought up during Black Lives Matter, to which Ben Shapiro retweeted someone calling me anti-Semitic doing blood libel, to which I replied with, I guess the Jewish Virtual Library is doing blood libel, if you remember. When I talked about kettling and corralling as a practice of crowd control and how the IDF had trained U.S. police departments after 9/11 and taught them the practice of kettling and corralling. Ben Shapiro had the audacity to claim that was blood libel. Blame the Jews as blood libel. The tactics haven't changed. Just to remind you, is it anti-Semitism? Dugat. Anyway. The NYPD has an office in Kfar Saba, Israel, as a part of its international liaison program, by the way. Operational since 2012. For you guys that don't know. That's also true. I'm going to post that as well. Hold on. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't see your whole setup for Halloween. Alberta just used notwithstanding clause to force teachers back to work, a first in Canadian history. Nice. Everything is just getting everything is getting worse and worse. Yeah, here's the birthright for cops. A 13-member delegation of New York Area Police Week under a program run by the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs dubbed the Birthright for American Police Chiefs. ADL bragging about how many cops they send to Israel, page 23. Meeting the moment, their 2016 annual report. Page 28. ADL meeting the moment every day. 100% of major U.S. metropolitan police departments have sent participants to ADL's National Counterterrorism Seminar in Israel and ADL's advanced training schools in extremist and terrorist threats. 100% of major U.S. metropolitan police departments. Isn't that fucking nuts? 15,000 law enforcement professionals receive comprehensive in-depth training from ADL on counterterrorism, extremist threats, core values, anti-bias, leadership, and hate crimes each year. Yep, we've been saying this. That's why, I mean, ironically enough, what Zohran is saying here is literally, a lot of people think when we bring up Israel or have an international framework that we operate off of, people tend to think that it takes you away from domestic issues, not realizing that Israel plays a formative role in the police violence that people experience on U.S. soil. And then these guys just turn around and go, ooh, you hate Jews and you hate cops, blah, 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 all this shit. It's bullshit. Israel is deeply intertwined with American domestic affairs, unlike any other country on the planet. Okay, there is no comparison. So yes, when we are criticizing Israel, we are criticizing a piece of America. I mean, I don't think so, but even if this was the opposite of his campaign rhetoric about focusing on New York City, not some global struggle. Wait, what? Even if Zohran has deprogrammed himself from this type of communist activist rhetoric on the campaign, which is good, man, but what's up? Okay. All right. Zohran wants to implement a pro-Israel curriculum in public schools to counter anti-Semitism. A pro-Israel curriculum? Wait, what the fuck?
Calls this
Mamdani, an anti-Zionist, is now supporting a curriculum that defines Zionism as the right to Jewish self-determination. It says an important aspect of Jewish identity is a connection to Israel. What the fuck? Oh, God. He is going to get fucking clobbered regardless. Nah, there's no way. I don't believe that. I mean, this is a JD Forward reporter. It's from Forward Magazine. I'll look into it, but I highly doubt that they would do such a thing. Like, do I believe that he will spend time on anti-Semitism initiatives and things of that nature? Certainly, but here, I'll listen to what he has to say. Mamdani says as part of his counter anti-Semitism is implementing an existing curriculum in public schools system called the Hidden Voices that would celebrate the breadth and the beauty of Jewish life in our city's history. I don't think that's what the Hidden Voices curriculum is about, but I could be wrong. Worth Googling to check. Yeah, I'm sure Forward is... for the Forward article is probably leaning heavily into the pro-Israel sentiment that is within the Hidden Voices existing curriculum, which is ironic because this is something that we talk about quite a bit, where the Jewish identity at the national front in the United States of America has been deliberately turned into one that is directly tied to Israel. So even in an instance where you're talking about like celebrating Jewish voices, there will still be celebrating Jewish American voices in New York City, there will still be something that's like pro-Israel in it.
To be a mayor, not just for those who vote for me, but for anyone who calls the city home. And one of the things that I've appreciated most in these last few months is building on the outreach we were doing in the primary and having more conversations with Jewish leaders, with rabbis, with elected officials, to speak about the importance of rooting out anti-Semitism across the 5 boroughs and the different ways in which you actually do so. Because there's far more talk about it and far less actual plans for how you will do anything about it. And so we have made clear that we're not just going to increase funding for hate crime prevention programming by 800%. We're not just going to ensure that NYPD continues to be outside of synagogues and temples on high holy days. We're also going to actually implement a curriculum called Hidden Voices that would celebrate the breadth and the beauty of Jewish life in our city's history. Because we have to both teach our young and ensure that we protect our old all at once in this city. And I'm looking to not just protect Jewish New Yorkers, but frankly, to celebrate them and to cherish them here in this city.
What kind of program is that? Did you start it?
Which one?
You said whatever you called it.
Hidden Voices?
Yeah, Hidden Voices.
That's an existing curriculum that
Okay.
just hasn't actually been implemented.
Yeah.
And this is the other part of it, is that in politics, there's a tendency to treat everything that came before.
Hyping up New York Jewish life isn't bad. No, JD, the Jewish Forward, or not Jewish Forward, Forward magazine, okay, JD Forward on Twitter, is a Jewish lifestyle magazine that, of course, much like all of the other, like Jewish Insider and all these other like magazines, play a big role in hyping up pro-Israel sentiment.
In politics, there's a
defending
tendency to treat
Israel.
everything that came before. There are a lot of great ideas that are already there in city government, in this city. They just haven't had someone with the political will to actually deliver on them.
So what they are saying, what Forward Magazine is saying, okay, what Forward Magazine is saying is that if the Hidden Voices curriculum at any point has anything related to Israel, then they're going to greatly overemphasize it to make it seem like Zohran is going back on his previous anti-Zionist tendencies, anti-Zionist leanings. Okay? That's it. They're doing exactly what you said earlier. Right-wing clippers exploiting leftist morality to swing the narrative. It doesn't matter if the clip doesn't match the text. Yeah. So if you look at the actual, I don't know enough about the Hidden Voices thing, right? Reviewed by Forward teaches students in kindergarten through 12th grade about Jewish Americans in the U.S. history and defines Zionism as the right of Jewish national self-determination in their ancestral homeland. So that's the thing. Like there is I suspect that even if there's like a brief moment anywhere in the Hidden Voices text that mentions Israel at all, Forward Magazine is using that as an opportunity to say, oh yeah, it's like, you know, this is it. The curriculum isn't exclusively about Israel or Judaism. I know. Yet, at the mayoral debate last Thursday, Mamdani said he would be a mayor who actually delivers on the implementation of Hidden Voices curriculum in our school system. Mamdani reiterated that position on Sunday on ABC's Up Close with Bill Ritter, saying the curriculum would celebrate the breadth and beauty of Jewish life in the city's history. What does the curriculum say about Israel? The curriculum says an important aspect of Jewish American identity is a connection to Israel, citing a 2023 statistic from the Pew Research Center that 82% of Jewish adults in the United States said caring about Israel is an essential or important part of what being Jewish means to them. It notes that for millennia, Jews have directed their prayers towards Jerusalem and continue to do so. The curriculum points to traditions like concluding the Passover Seder with next year in Jerusalem as evidence of Jews' enduring connection to Israel. Many Jewish Americans have family and friends in Israel, again reinforcing the familiar concept of Jews around the world as a people, the curriculum reads. At the same time, the curriculum acknowledges that Jews are not a monolith and hold a range of opinions about Israel. The Jewish figures profiled exhibit a range of attitudes about Zionism and the state of Israel, from passionate support to disengagement to harsh criticism, the curriculum says. For example, the curriculum notes that a businessman and a progressive philanthropist, Julius Rosenwald, did not support Zionism. It also says that Jewish students bring a range of feelings and opinions about Israel to the classroom. They should be allowed to develop those ideas and speak for themselves. I don't think that's what the Hidden Voices curriculum is about, but I could be wrong. Worth Googling the check. Yeah, Forward is probably greatly overemphasizing what the Hidden Voices curriculum actually is. The Hidden Voices curriculum itself most likely has nothing to do with Israel whatsoever and everything to do with American Jews. Okay? And yet, I think this is it. And yet, they are trying to say that Zohran is. I think the reason why they're fucking saying that is because they want to make it seem as though Zohran is fake. Okay, he's not He is. They want to make it so that you, anti-Zionists, that hear this go, oh, he is betraying. He is betraying the anti-Zionist cause. Okay, that's it. Collectively, these profiles clearly show the question of Jewish nationhood has long been central to the diaspora. So too does this group exhibit a range of attitudes about Zionism and the state of Israel, from passionate support to disengagement. Yeah, they did that. They did the thing that I'm doing right now. Okay, which is they key searched Israel and Zionism and then took choice quotes, and then they turned around and said, see, this is a pro-Israel document, which of course it is, for the record, of course, because the since 1948, every document that pertains to Jews living anywhere around the world, but especially in the United States of America, will connect them to the state of Israel. Even if the document itself is not like overwhelmingly pro-Israel or shows a wide scope of dissenting opinions amongst Jews, which is fair to put in an educational document, okay? Like the best you're ever going to get is like some document that is agnostic to Israel when reflecting on American Jews and their opinions. Okay? This, of course, is not going to win any favors with the voters in New York that are only worried about Zohran's attitudes against Israel. It's not going to work at all. And at most, it will make people suspicious. Like this guy. He says, if it's a curriculum that's not already implemented and not really well known, why is he going out of his way to talk about implementing it? Because he's trying to neutralize the anti-Semitism allegations. Duh. What the fuck do you think? What do you think? Why do you think he's doing that? Also because anti-Semitism is a real problem too. Yes. But it's not like a major point of contention if we're being fucking like when you match up anti-Semitism in New York City versus what is going on in the race, even the way that people are talking about anti-Semitism and weaponizing anti-Semitism in a way that is Islamophobic versus the open, transparent Islamophobia that you've seen in this race from people who are participating in it, from Andrew Cuomo all the way to fucking Curtis Lewa. I feel like there's a major asymmetry here, don't you think? That's it. Yeah, Hidden Voices is not just about Judaism. Hidden Voices is about all minority populations. Only one of their many programs has anything to do with Jews. Yeah. The mistake in this situation is when you use this as a, I mean, I don't think this will be a major point of contention for anybody really, but the mistake here is that then people will turn around and say, well, you don't believe Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish ethno-state, but the document that you're presenting clearly defines Zionism as a Jewish homeland. And I guess he can still turn around and say, yeah, you can have it as a Jewish homeland as long as you also have equal rights and equal representation for non-Jews. No, it's not a one-like tweet. It's a reporter from Forward magazine promoting their article that no one read. Okay, just for clarity, the idea of training U.S. forces part is factual. My point is, out of the broader argument he is making in the treatise about the need to see issues with the NYPD in the context of global struggle against capital is correct. And his current campaign rhetoric is in line with that change. He's still trying to justify it, Tim Miller, while simultaneously acknowledging that what he is saying is completely correct. It's awesome. My coworker is asking if we can listen to something other than Hasan stream at work just for a day. No. The answer is no. Open. Wait. What the hell? Open presents. Thank you for the 25 gifted subs. Tell your coworker no. It's time to get woke. It's time to get wokeified. All right. Let's continue.
Now just a week away, Andrew Cuomo is now gaining some ground on frontrunner Zohran Mamdani, according to one new poll. And early voting numbers are on the rise compared to 4 years ago, with older voters outnumbering younger voters so far. Christina Fan has the latest.
Zohran Mamdani refusing to grow complacent, campaigning on a radio station Tuesday morning while still leading his competitors by double digits.
We never trust the polls. We go out there and earn every vote ourselves. That's what we got to do the next 7 days so we can be the next mayor of New York City.
The most recent poll by Suffolk University Boston does show Cuomo closing in, cutting Mamdani's 20-point lead by half. The Democratic Socialist is at 44, Cuomo 34, Curtis Sliwa 11.
I encourage a continued turnout. The people will choose it. Not the billionaires, not the insiders, not the influencers who have been wrong every step of the way.
More than 223,000 New Yorkers have cast their ballots in the first 3 days of early voting. An analysis shows a dramatic age shift. Voters over 50 far outnumber younger ones who helped propel Mamdani to his dominant win over Cuomo in the Democratic primary.
There's anger in this city. There's frustration in this city. It's all percolating, and you can feel it out there.
Political analysts say the person with the most influence in the final days of this race is Curtis Sliwa, who refuses to back out. When his supporters were asked who their second choice is for mayor, 36% said Cuomo, 2% Mamdani. Reporting from Jackson Heights and Queens, Christina Fan, CBS News, New York.
Be sure to stay with CBS News New York for the latest heading up to Election Day. For more information on early voting, including polling hours and locations, you can head to our website, CBS New York.
At this point, would it be too hypocritical for Sliwa to drop out? I don't think he will. I hope he doesn't. Anyway, analysis of what a new poll shows in the New York City mayoral race. In one poll, older voters so far, a lot of qualifiers that make a statement like Cuomo's surging. It's still worrisome. It's worrisome, and the Zohran campaign is using it as a way to get people to lock in and not feel comfortable about their victory. Okay?
All right, we are 1 week away from Election Day. The race for mayor entering its final stretch. And Election Day approaching quickly next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. All right, early voting getting underway over the weekend, and some of the early numbers could spell a change in the wind for our candidates, depending. Good Day's Robert Moses is here now with the very latest. Robert, what's going on?
Dan and Tashani, at this exact moment, 1 week from today, we will be talking about how polls have just opened here in the city in the most consequential election the city has seen in recent memory. It's a race the whole country is watching. Last night, Zohran Mamdani appeared on The Daily Show.
Are you going back to New York City for Election Day? I was planning on it, but I have so much fucking travel that I don't know if I can swing it. Because, like, right after I have to be in D.C., and then right after I have to fly to China. So it's the difference between, like, being away for 20 days versus being away for, like, 30 plus days. Who cares about D.C.? I'm doing Crooked Con.
Jon Stewart asked him if he's at all bothered by how long it has taken some Democrats to endorse him, like Hakeem Jeffries, or by the fact that some Democrats haven't endorsed him at all. Mamdani says endorsements only mean so much.
It's part of what gave Cuomo the sense of inevitability in the primary. He just seemed to pick up all of these different endorsements. And I think what we showed in many ways was that the days of endorsements deciding elections, those days have come to an end. It's the people that build up a campaign.
Earlier, Mamdani addressed the controversy that has embroiled his campaign over the last few days. On Friday, as he talked about post-9/11 Islamophobia, he mentioned an aunt who stopped taking the subway because she did not feel safe in her hijab. Well, after that comment, critics determined that Mamdani's one direct biological aunt actually didn't fit the description that he gave. So yesterday, Mamdani acknowledged that, in fact, he was not speaking about his aunt.
I was speaking about Zohran, my father's cousin, who sadly passed away a few years ago. For the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo to reckon with a crisis of his own making.
Speaking of the former governor, there are a couple of encouraging signs for Cuomo. A new Suffolk University poll of likely voters shows him trailing Mamdani by 10 percentage points. This is encouraging because if you compare this survey to one that Suffolk took last month when Mayor Eric Adams was still in the race, Mamdani was up 20, so his lead has now been cut in half, according to Suffolk University. And Gothamist crunched some numbers, did some analysis of early voting data, and what Gothamist came up with is that more than half of those who voted early this weekend are 55 and older. Experts say that could be an encouraging sign for Cuomo.
The choice is as stark as you think. He is inexperienced. You're right. He is divisive. You are right. He is not about bringing New Yorkers together. He's about dividing New Yorkers.
Republican Curtis Sliwa remains in the mix as well, much to the chagrin of those who fear that his presence will hand City Hall to Mamdani.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Every fucking day, Zohran is like, I love Jewish New Yorkers. I'm going to do everything in my power to save Jewish New Yorkers, to protect Jewish New Yorkers. And all Cuomo has to say is Zohran is going to do 9/11 just like all of the Muslim New Yorkers that came before him. And then he's the one who's divisive. I hate this shit. I think if there was any fucking, if Obabe was a real one who did actually care about the future of this country, he'd come out and be like, I've seen a lot of similar rhetoric launched against me. This young mind is exactly the kind of young talent that we need to see in the Democrat Party. He will never do that, of course, and just fucking bury all of this shit. Let me be clear. Keep dreaming, Law. I'm just saying, if he was the real champion of democracy, or even a person who was remotely invested in the future of the Democratic Party, or remotely invested in fighting against the growing wave of American fascism, he would do that. Instead, he's busy endorsing the CIA candidates.
Mamdani. Former Governor David Paterson teased an endorsement of Cuomo. Paterson endorsed the former governor in the primary. Then he backed Adams once Cuomo lost the primary. Now he's likely coming back to support Cuomo. All of that gives Sliwa a case of endorsement whiplash.
If I were Governor David Paterson, who I know well, I would stop making an embarrassment of myself. Because this guy can't figure out from one day to the next who he's endorsing.
And we are seeing record early voting numbers here in the city. So far, after 3 days of early voting, more than 223,000 people have cast ballots across the 5 boroughs. If you compare that to 4 years ago, a little more than 45,000 had voted after 3 days of early voting. So that means we're seeing nearly 5 times the turnout this year that we saw back in 2021. Really extraordinary numbers as we're barreling toward Election Day. Tashani and Dan, back to you.
Extraordinary. That's a good way to put it, Robert. Thank you very much. It is.
Please, please, do not underestimate our opponents. They have a huge amount of money, so I urge you, forget about the polls. Go into this election assuming that you are 5 points behind. A year ago, very few people in New York knew about a 33-year-old assemblyman named Zohran Mamdani. Nobody knew who this guy was. He created an extraordinary and unprecedented grassroots movement. So what you guys are going to have to do